The Trump Justice Department released a sizable portion of files, but not all of them. The law President Trump signed 1 month ago stipulates all files released today. This partial release, therefore, may face legal challenge. The law, again signed by Trump, seeks records, documents, communications, and investigative files on Epstein's sex trafficking and materials related to his convicted accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. Also covered flight logs and manifest, names of individuals and entities in the Epstein orbit. Also, records on past immunity deals and internal discussions about whether charges against other individuals or other entities should or would ever be brought. We have a team standing by to evaluate what we know at this hour, as well as a lawyer for some Epstein survivors to offer perspective of those victimized and how their long quest for information and accountability is faring up against these legal requirements for more disclosure. But before I get to Scott MacFarlane, a bit of big political news. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik moments ago announced she is ending her campaign for governor in New York and will not seek re-election to the House. That's big. We begin with Scott MacFarlane, who joins me now here at the desk. Scott, sorry for bungling your name.
It's all good.
What do we know so far? I know it's early days.
Well, War and Peace, the famously long novel, is 1,400 pages, give or take. This is 100 times more records that have just been thrown upon America. So it's going to take some time just to get your bearings and figure out what you're looking at, the scope and size of what's there.
Is it organized in any searchable or easily searchable way?
It's organized in a way. They're categorized by agencies. So you've got the Bureau of Prisons records of Jeffrey Epstein's time behind bars. You have the FBI records from their investigations of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. You have different components of things that were released already. But you can tell just from first glance at the first part of this War and Peace that there's heavy redactions, distinctively heavy redactions. And it's going to be important to measure tonight, Major, whether they've gone too far with that. Now, you have to protect the names of victims. You have to protect sources, sensitive materials. You certainly have to redact any child abuse material. But the law that was passed requiring tonight's release required it to be as transparent as possible, to the redactions be minimized. And I think it's an open question whether they've gone too far or done it just right.
What about pictures?
Oh, there are many photos, and it's hard to get those into context as well. First glance of photos, at the tranche of photos that have been released, is the initial glance shows you no wrongdoing by anybody in the photos, at least in the ones we've seen initially. But it shows you the powerful circles in which Jeffrey Epstein operated, and that's been a component of this story from the jump. He had a very powerful social circle, which raises the question, who among the people shown in the photos had any knowledge of the crimes? It's kind of been the thesis of all of this. I don't think it's going to be quick to figure out from this file what's been shown.
Pictures of Bill Clinton, former president, with Jeffrey Epstein. Any pictures so far that we have detected, and I know it's early in the process, of Epstein with current President Trump?
Now, we've seen a bunch of those photos in recent days from the congressional releases of stuff from the Epstein estate. So we know there are photos that exist. The first hour of review of these records don't show photos of Donald Trump. But I don't want to take a measure of this in the matter of hours. I would say look at it over days. But there's a more fundamental issue beyond what do we see in the pictures right now and what do we see in the files right now. It's how many of the files do we see overall? Because the Department of Justice this morning acknowledged they were not going to release everything today, that there'd be hundreds of thousands more released in the coming weeks. That is not following the law, which required a full release by tonight. They made an argument that they need more time to do the redactions, to get through everything. But because we don't have everything, what's not shown today isn't telling you much, because more is coming.
And therefore, there is a clash over the definition of transparency. The Trump White House issued a statement saying, we've been more transparent than anyone in this space because these files are out and they never would have been out if we didn't agree to do it. But there's a law the president signed, yet Democrats say, wait a minute, the law says all and you're not even close.
But what is the remedy? The remedy would be some form of legal challenge. The top Democrats on the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees today talked about that possibility. I just heard Adam Schiff from California say we need some hearings. We need the Attorney General to sit and answer as to why everything's not released right now. But those remedies are pretty thin leverage to use, especially if the Department of Justice is saying declaratively, we're going to get it all out there in the coming weeks. I'll just add, Major, talk to one of the survivors, Annie Farmer, who's been an advocate for
been on this
years.
program.
And she's been trying to get records, and that's been part of her fight. She says she's pessimistic. Everything comes out based on her initial glance of what's been going out so far.
Scott, if you'd be so kind, please stay here. I want to bring into our conversation, which camera? Camera one. Okay, thank you, Guy. Barry Levine, who has covered Jeffrey Epstein for years. He's been on this program several times. He is the author of the book, The Spider, Inside the Tangled Web of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Barry, I know it's early. Only been about an hour and 10 minutes. Any overall summation from you on what we have seen or, importantly, not seen?
Well, Major, I'm really drilling down on the FD 302 reports. They're supposed to be the FBI witness reports that involve the 20 or so men that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked these girls to. And I want to see exactly what the FBI did to investigate these 20 men. This is really where the rubber meets the road. I mean, you're just talking about Annie Farmer. Her sister, Maria Farmer, first went to the FBI in 1996, almost 30 years ago, to report Jeffrey Epstein to the FBI. And it's only now that we may finally be able to get some answers. But again, just drilling down in the past 30 minutes onto the government website, many redactions of files. I've yet to find the FD 302 files pertaining to these 20 men that I'm looking for. I've yet to find Jeffrey Epstein's autopsy report so we can get some answers about his death. So there's a lot of material to go through. Of course, they front-loaded a lot of images. There's pictures of Bill Clinton. I've yet to see images of President Trump. But again, this is a first step, even though the Justice Department was supposed to release everything today. We're not getting everything today, but there'll be plenty of material to go through in the next hours and the next days.
And my reading of the law, Barry, and I wonder if it matches yours, is that these FD 302s are covered. They need to be there.
Yes. I mean, Representative Thomas Massey, who revealed to us a while back about these 20 men, he said he went through these FBI reports and he identified 20 powerful individuals that were connected with Jeffrey Epstein that took part in the alleged sex trafficking. There's 6 billionaires on this list. There's a wealthy executive from Italy. There's someone from the entertainment industry, someone from the royal family. So we need to see these reports, and we need to see what the FBI did. Did they interview these men? Did they try to corroborate victim statements with any other evidence? And if so, why not? Was there a cover-up going on for many years that allowed these men to escape justice?
And Barry, is it your sense that information that you just described could have led to prosecutions or maybe not prosecutions, because it's hard to build cases in matters of this nature because there are questions of knowledge, of participation, willing or slightly coerced? Those things are sometimes hard for juries to parse through, but also just a general lack of accountability for people who were involved in something that if they were forced to know that the public would learn about that, would be shamed themselves, and that's a missing part of this entire saga.
Yes, it absolutely is. But what you have to understand here is that the FBI initially took on this case from the Palm Beach police back in 2006. And so the information from those victims was very fresh at the time before Jeffrey Epstein did his non-prosecution agreement in 2008. That was the time to really go after these individuals who took part in the sex trafficking. And that didn't happen. And then, of course, years later, the FBI comes back in 2019 and they arrest Jeffrey Epstein. And again, they had all this information. What happened over those years? Were there additional investigations going on? And this is something that only these files can answer.
Barry, Scott MacFarlane is here. He has a question.
Let me chime in, Barry. You're getting a snapshot here. You see the level of redactions. You see the partial nature of these records. Do you have any sense this is going to quiet the controversies or cool off the theories?
You know, Scott, this is something I hate to say, but I think that years from now, like we're still talking about, John F. Kennedy's assassination and what happened there, we're going to be talking years later about Jeffrey Epstein. I don't think that a great deal of the public is going to be completely satisfied that we're seeing all the files. They wonder what happened to, our files related to President Trump. Are they going to go later? Are they going to be missing? We don't know all the answers here. But there's going to be questions about this for years to come.
Barry, on that point, in the two-page memo the Justice Department released, it said its review, which it described as exhaustive, created no predicate to investigate for possible prosecution anyone else in the Epstein orbit. Do you believe these disclosures, once they have been fully reviewed by you and others, will support that contention?
Well, this is something that Kash Patel said, that they were, at the time when they said they weren't going to release the files to us in July, they said there were no third-party involvement, that there was no blackmail and so forth. There was no reason to release the files. Representative Thomas Massie has said that his own review of the FBI files shows the fact that there were 20 men who were involved in the sex trafficking. So, who's telling the truth here, and why aren't we getting the full picture? This is something that we really need to drill down on, because the survivors have been going through a trauma through this, since the time of their own experiences with Jeffrey Epstein. They want to hold men accountable for the wrongdoing. And thus far, with the exception of Ghislaine Maxwell, who is serving 20 years behind bars as Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, no one else has been brought to justice.